Armani Dante Morgan, born on December 19, 1989, was a young man from Dallas, Texas. He was only 17 when he lived with his mother in their apartment. But Armani was no ordinary teenager. He was bold, unapologetic, and full of life. His presence was electric, and his smile was unforgettable. Armani carried himself with a level of confidence that was impossible to miss. The sound of gunfire echoed through the building, and both Armani and his mother rushed outside, unsure of what to expect. They searched tirelessly, desperate for any sign, any clue that might explain where Armani had gone, but the days dragged on with no answers. For nearly 2 months, they held on to hope, wondering if Armani would walk through the door, safe and sound. But that hope was shattered on July 24th, when a passerby made a grim discovery. The case remains unsolved, and Armani's family has had enough. They've also created a petition on Change.org urging the authorities to take action and reopen the case. Despite their tireless efforts, however, there has been no movement. Despite everything he faced in his final months, assault, harassment, and targeted violence, he never stopped being true to himself. Raise awareness, help bring justice to Armani and his family. His family's fight for justice continues, and as long as there's breath in their lungs, they will never stop seeking the truth. Let's not let Armani's death be just another unsolved case. Let's make sure his story is heard, and let's make sure those responsible are held accountable. The fight for justice doesn't end here. It begins with us. No one should ever have to go through what the Morgan family has endured, living without knowing the truth, without justice for a loved one. Armani was a young man full of life, love, and hope for the future. His murder has left a hole in the lives of his family, friends, and the community that loved him. His death will not be forgotten, and his family will not stop until they have the justice they deserve. The case remains open, but still officially labeled as undetermined. As of June 2025, the family is still fighting for the truth, still searching for the justice that Armani deserves. They are fighting for justice, and they won't back down. They are trapped in a state of limbo, unable to move forward while they wait for answers that may never come. They feel like their fight for justice has been ignored by the authorities, and yet they continue to push forward, holding on to hope that someone, somewhere, will step up and provide the answers they so desperately need. They have made their demands clear. They want the Texas Rangers and the State Attorney General, his office, to conduct a full review of the case and reopen the investigation. They want a bullet from the May 31st shooting tested for forensic evidence. They want a thorough search of the crime scene and surrounding area, hoping to uncover more physical evidence or clues that might bring them closer to the truth. They want Armani's death certificate amended to reflect what they already believe, that this was a homicide, not an accident or overdose. Near Bushman Park, just blocks from Armani's home, skeletal remains were found. The bones were scattered on the street, alongside pieces of Armani's clothing and a purse he often carried. But what they didn't expect was another ambush. This time, the attackers were people Armani had once trusted, people he thought were his friends. The number reportedly belonged to someone who was dating a friend of Armani's. Could this be the break the family had been waiting for? Could this number hold the key to understanding what happened to Armani? Despite the discovery, investigators were slow to connect the dots, initially suggesting that Armani's death might have been the result of a drug overdose, but his family immediately rejected this theory. They pointed to the clear pattern of escalating violence leading up to his disappearance. This was murder, and they weren't going to rest until they had answers. A woman and her teenage daughter were there, and it didn't take long for the situation to escalate into violence. Yet, despite all the signs, the case was stalled. Armani's aunt, Robin Johnson, stepped up as the voice for justice. She worked tirelessly to push back against misinformation from the media and law enforcement. She refused to let Armani's story be swept under the rug. As the weeks passed, 3 individuals emerged as key suspects in the case. All of them were tied to the harassment and violence that Armani had endured. One of the suspects, the alleged shooter, was killed in 2019. Another is serving time for unrelated crimes, and the third remains at large, still unidentified. The attack, horrifyingly, was caught on video, and later, the shooter bragged about it on social media. This was no longer a random act of violence. It was a targeted, calculated effort to destroy Armani's sense of security. He was openly gay, proudly expressing his identity in everything he did, from his clothing choices to the way he held himself. Armani made it clear he would never conform to society's standards or hide who he was. He wore what he liked, not caring what anyone had to say about it. His self-assuredness and unapologetic nature made him an inspiration to those around him. But little did he know, this very confidence would be the catalyst for a chilling and tragic turn of events that would haunt his family forever. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, there were growing signs that something wasn't right. It became painfully clear that someone, or perhaps several people, were targeting Armani. The harassment started slowly at first, but it escalated with shocking intensity. Armani, who had always been a beacon of strength and individuality, began to feel the weight of fear pressing down on him. What had once been a normal life was now clouded by the looming danger of harassment and violence. On May 22, 2017, Armani was assaulted. A week later, the first of many disturbing phone calls arrived. He began receiving harassing calls from someone connected to the earlier attack, baiting him and trying to provoke him into coming outside. The harasser was relentless. And this wasn't just a game, it was a sinister attempt to break Armani's spirit and lure him into something far darker. Armani, terrified but determined to stand his ground, refused to let fear control him. He did what he could to protect himself. But this was just the beginning of a sequence of events that would spiral out of control. On May 31st, the situation took a dramatic turn when a bullet shattered the window of Armani's mother's apartment. Just 3 days later, on June 13, 2017, Armani vanished. His family was thrown into chaos. Inside that purse was a clue, a small scrap of paper with a phone number written on it. The Dallas County Medical Examiner ultimately ruled the cause of death as undetermined, but the Dallas Police Department treated the case as a homicide from day one. Even with these leads, no one has been charged with Armani's death. In their fight for justice, Armani's family has launched a billboard campaign across Dallas, hoping to raise awareness and keep his story alive. The Morgan family's pain is compounded by the lack of action. Armani's story is one of tragedy, but it is also one of resilience. If you want to help, there is something you can do. Sign the petition on change.org. Share this story. Armani Dante Morgan's life was tragically cut short, but his story is far from over.